let us talk briefly about the prophet Malachi. He has some very famous prophecies. His prophecy was quoted by Moroni when Moroni appeared to Joseph Smith, and is quoted by Christ in 3rd Nephi. Who was he? Again, like most of these prophets, we don't really know. He almost certainly lived either during the time of Ezra and Nehemiah or shortly after, because he is again chastising the Jews for the same things that Nehemiah gets after him for. Violation of the Sabbath, not honoring their priesthood and the temple, marrying strange wives. All of those things that Ezra and Nehemiah were fighting against, Malachi is also prophesying against. Maybe he was prophesying during that interim period when Nehemiah returned to Shushan in Persia. Remember, Nehemiah was there for 12 years, then he returned, and he came back for a second term as governor. And in that interim, that might be when Malachi was prophesying, because when Nehemiah comes back, he has to set all this stuff straight. But other than that, we really don't know about Malachi. Now, according to some ancient traditions, Malachi is a pseudonym. It just means messenger or my messenger, and is thought to refer to Ezra. But this cannot be directly confirmed. The sources that equate it to Ezra were written much later, a century or so after the fact. So we can't really prove it, but it is the standard tradition of most ancient authors. Now, there is some contention with that in the modern day, but we don't know. Was he Ezra? Now, I will say in the modern day, there's no revelation on this point. God, nor any prophet that I know of, has stated that Malachi and Ezra are the same person. But they haven't stated that they're not the same person either. So again, we are not given sufficient information. Malachi's prophecies are largely a condemnation of the Jews, but he does prophesy of the last days, and it is those prophecies that are quoted by Christ and later by Moroni. On a final note, there is the tradition that Zechariah, Haggai, and Malachi are all buried together in what is called the tomb of the prophets. Now, this is a tradition that started in the Middle Ages, and so there's a lot of question on whether or not that is where they're actually buried. There's also a much more ancient tradition that Ezra was given a stately funeral, and if that is true, it is unlikely that he was buried in the tomb that is described. So again, these are conflicting traditions. If Malachi and Ezra are different people, maybe Malachi was buried in the tomb with Zechariah and Haggai. But if they're the same person, it's doubtful that that is the case. But who was he? We just don't know. So let us read Malachi.